Let me go back a bit to questions around, our current domestic economic situation. You talked before about bringing, over time, government spending down to about 30% of GDP. The health service is, after Social Security, the biggest area of expenditure. How would you handle the health service? Is it your intention that pieces of it should be selectively privatised or placed into private insurance, or what are your thoughts on the health service?
Well, I think, I've seen the American system, and I think it's horrendous. People being bankrupted through their bills. I love the way that you go to the NHS. You might have to wait 2 years for something to happen, but it's free at the end. Well, it's not free. Obviously somebody is paying for it. Hopefully you've contributed and you are paying it. But that's the system I like. I think, as anybody will know, you go in there, we shouldn't have those waiting lists. And the main thing that causes those waiting lists, again, it's a bit like the housing situation, where you have people who've been waiting for years for an operation, but if someone's need is greater than you, they leapfrog the queue and push you to the back. Whereas I think the National Health Service should actually do it on a first come, first served basis and get through it, because what they invariably do by taking on the most needy cases is that they get the most expensive operations, the most expensive thing, which I'm sure is something to do with their pay packets and the people they see first. And it's crazy. Why can't you? You go in. I mean, I've had 4 children in hospital, 3 of them by cesarean section, and I was amazed how quickly everyone got together, did the operation, and out you go again. It was simple. Why can't that be the same for for any other of these operations? Why do you have to wait for years?
And I think that addresses the issue of waiting lists and so on very, very well. But the issue of cost is very significant. It absorbs so much of government spending. How are you going to control and maybe even over time bring down the cost of providing good quality healthcare to people?
I mean, again, with the cuts, I'd apply the same rule that we would to the government, which is it's vastly overspending what it needs to. The drugs aren't bought on the open market price. There are price negotiated with drug companies, which costs us billions more than it needs to. What is going on? Everybody's got their finger in the pie in there. Just by actually bringing it back down to a free market situation for the NHS spending its money, you will save huge amounts of money. And we all know it's ineffective in many areas. The place isn't run very well, and I see that there's some very easy changes there. And I think, I hope I'm not wrong, but I think it's about 8% of our GDP, which is pretty good as a figure. I know other countries, I think it's Singapore, are down to like 2%, 3%, somewhere around there, and apparently have a fantastic health system. So there is a lot that could be done and give people better service. If you're queuing up waiting for operations, and I've been in that same situation myself, even waiting 4 months just to go and get a little scan just to go and see if something was okay, it's ridiculous. Those are all very simple things. When I got there, 4 scanning machines weren't even in use for the whole time I was there sitting waiting. So what on earth is going on?
You talked quite a bit while we've been speaking about in terms of the free market and how markets operate. What does that mean for you as an English Democrat?
Well, basically, it means because we're not in a free market. People think we're in a free market, but we're in a managed economy. So you can see you can't have a bit of a managed economy and a bit of a free market. It's either one or the other. We're either like the Soviet Union was, which is a totally managed situation where no company could go bankrupt. All the inefficient people stayed there, being more and more inefficient, and it took you 8 years to get a Trabant or something ridiculous like that, or 4 years to go and get a piece of ham from the shop, once you've taken your voucher. We have to be in a free market system. It doesn't favour anybody. For sure, all those banks would be bust that were irresponsible, and all of the companies out there that overstretch themselves, predominantly large companies. It's a myth that small companies are less efficient than a large company. It's a large company that isn't efficient, it spreads itself too thinly, overstretches itself, quickly finds it out-compete. And that's the way to hold these people in check that want to build these great big corporations that then become crony mechanisms with the government, crony corporatism, not capitalism. Because capitalism is something we haven't seen since probably the end of the 1800s. That's the last time I could work it out. We actually truly had capitalism and free markets. And then, of course, we had all of the do-gooders come in wanting social reform because they saw this huge pile of cash that a lot of people have had. Whereas that, if they'd left it alone, would have found its way quickly back to other businesses that would have answered all of those social problems that all the do-gooders came in and just ruined. And we've had, 100 years of actually destructiveness caused by that kind of a situation. The free market favours nobody. People on, third generation unemployed can go and compete with somebody who's had a fantastic education. If you're better at that, you'll get the job.
How would say free market economics work inside the NHS?
Well, for instance, and you could apply it to schools as well, because the system that I favour, and I think a lot of people are coming round to in the country, and particularly the English Democrats, is the voucher system. So you pay into your local hospital. You don't have to give it to the government, who then wastes 3/4 of it in the bureaucracy and then hands a tiny bit back, and then gets absorbed into the bureaucracy of the NHS. You actually just pay straight in, and you get a voucher that says you're contributing, and if the hospital doesn't meet what you want, you can take that voucher and go somewhere else. So the successful hospitals will get bigger and will become the people who run the hospital well, and give serve people. So people go there, they'll get more throughput, and the inefficient ones will. They'll be quite apparent who they are. And the same with schools as well. You can take your vouchers. I think it's about £2,200 per child per year, I think is the average. So you'd have a voucher of that to that value, and maybe split down into terms or half terms or whatever. And if you don't like that school, you take it somewhere else. And if enough of you get together like-minded and you say what you want to be taught in that school, because parents should have, it's your children, it's the government's children. You say what goes on in that school, yes, and it shouldn't be necessarily based on faith or anything like that. It should be just strictly on what children need to learn, the stuff that you would be teaching your kids at home, and that's where we would come from. And I think it's a fantastically fair, it's a fantastically simple, and it's a beautiful model. It works so well, and it favours nobody, and it just makes sure that the inefficient, the bad teachers who everybody and myself were taught by don't actually get in. Get them out, let them go and find the job that they can do, because they certainly can't teach.
Andrew Osborne for the English Democrats here outside Westminster, central London, in a grey March day. Thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome. I hope I've avoided most of your questions.